Welcome to Daily English Flow. Stay until the end for a special bonus tip. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
This is the brief on overcoming the B1 reading bottleneck. If you're stuck at that intermediate level, reading word by word literally limits your pace to your speaking speed, but by rewiring your physical and mental habits, you can absorb text at up to 500 words per minute. First, we've got to kill subvocalization, which is just silently pronouncing every single word in your head. It's basically like driving in first gear on the highway. Your brain can go way faster than your vocal cords. To fix this, just chew some gum while you read. It occupies your motor cortex so your inner voice kinda can't articulate. Or try immersion reading, playing an audiobook at 1.0 to 1.2 times speed while reading along, which physically drags your visual processing speed right up. Second, once you quiet that inner voice, you need to fix how your eyes physically move across the page. The real enemies here are reading word by word and regression, which just means jumping backward. The fix? Use your finger or a cursor as a continuous pacer to stop backtracking. Then, train your eyes to take quick visual snapshots of 3 to 4 word chunks, rather than getting stuck on single words. Finally, now that your eyes are moving smoothly, your brain needs to know what to actually pay attention to. Think of grammar like an X-ray machine. Using syntactic parsing, you spot the grammatical skeleton, the subject, verb, and object, while totally ignoring the descriptive flesh, or fluff. Here's a huge shortcut. English writing is super predictable. The main idea is almost always in the very first sentence of a paragraph. So read that normally, and then double your speed through the supporting details. By quieting your inner voice, guiding your eyes, and hunting for the grammatical skeleton, you stop decoding English and start truly absorbing it.
Have you ever sat down to tackle a long article, maybe a dense chapter of a book, or even just one of those really long emails, and literally 3 pages in, your brain just feels totally fried? Or, oh, how about this? You get to the end of a long paragraph and realize you have absolutely no idea what you just read. Nothing. So you have to go all the way back and read the whole thing over again. Well, if that sounds familiar, you are in exactly the right place. Welcome to this Masterclass Explainer. Today, we're going to completely rewire how your eyes and your brain process text. We're giving you the exact, actionable tools you need to literally double your reading speed.
I want you to really think about this for a second. When you're looking at a page, do you pronounce every single word in your head as you read? Doesn't it feel like your eyes are just stuck in slow motion, while other people seem to effortlessly fly through pages in seconds? It is just an incredibly exhausting way to consume information. This is a very real plateau, and it's what we call the reading bottleneck.
Okay, let's dive into this. Because the reason you feel so stuck, it actually comes down to this massive discrepancy between your mouth and your brain. Look, the average human speaks at about 150 words per minute, but your brain, your visual processing center, is easily capable of taking in 300, 400, or even 500 words per minute. By insisting on hearing the words in your head, your reading speed is artificially chained to your incredibly slow speaking speed. You're entirely ignoring your lightning-fast visual processing potential.
So here's our roadmap for this explainer. To unlock that true reading potential, number 1, we'll cover the B1 reading bottleneck. Number 2, turn off your inner voice. Number 3, the physical mechanics of speed. Number 4, X-ray the grammatical skeleton. And finally, number 5, the tolerance of ambiguity.
Starting off with Section 1, the B1 reading bottleneck, and exactly why intermediate readers get stuck.
So when you first learn a language, or when you start reading about a really complex new subject, you're basically taught to read like a detective. You examine every single word, you check the grammar, you decode the meaning piece by piece. But as you transition into an intermediate or advanced reader, that exact same habit becomes your absolute biggest enemy. You see, you're no longer reading to decode, you need to read to absorb. And the ultimate culprit dragging you down here? It's something called subvocalization. That is the habit of silently pronouncing every single word in your head as you read it. You honestly might not even realize you're doing it, but that inner voice is saying the words. Doing this is exactly like driving in first gear on a highway. I mean, you're revving your engine to the absolute limit, expending a ton of energy, but you're physically restricting how fast the vehicle can actually travel.
Which brings us right to Section 2, turn off your inner voice, and how to break this biological bottleneck.
To break this biological bottleneck, we need to completely transition away from auditory processing and move entirely toward visual semantic processing. Think about it. When you see the word apple,
You don't need to sound out A-P-P-L-E to know what it is, right? You want to just see the word and instantly visualize the fruit in your mind, completely bypassing the sound. So, how do we actually do this? Well, I want you to try something right now. Take your finger and physically tap it on your desk or table in a steady rhythm. Just tap, tap, tap. Feel that? That physical motion is actually occupying your motor cortex and vocal-adjacent areas of the brain, making it physically difficult for your inner voice to articulate words while reading. That's the exact logic behind the chewing gum hack. Just chew gum while you read. We also have instrumental distraction. Listening to lo-fi or classical music occupies the auditory processor so your visual processor can just fly. Then there's visual flashing, which relies on speed reading apps flashing words in milliseconds, giving your inner voice literally no time to pronounce them. And finally, concept translation, where you force your brain to project a 1-second movie clip of the action instead of hearing the words.
Now, what's really interesting here is how this completely busts a massive myth. A lot of learners and students think that reading a book out loud will make them a better, faster reader. Well, it doesn't. Reading aloud is fantastic for improving your pronunciation and your speaking skills, for sure, but it absolutely destroys your reading speed. So if you want to double your reading speed, you must separate your practice. Do 10 minutes out loud for pronunciation, but then dedicate 20 minutes to completely silent, high-speed reading for comprehension and pure velocity.
Let's move on to Section 3, the physical mechanics of speed. This is all about treating your eyes like athletes.
You know, reading isn't just a mental activity. It's actually a highly physical one. Your eyes are muscles, and they move across the page in these rapid little jumps called saccades. But before we can optimize those jumps, we have to eliminate the bad movements. And the worst offender of all? Regression. This is when you read a sentence, get to the end, feel a slight doubt, and your eyes just dart back to the beginning. You stop, you restart, it's exhausting. Untrained readers actually spend 30% of their time rereading text they already fully understood. It completely shatters your momentum.
And this brilliantly illustrates how we fix that, by chunking. Instead of stopping your eyes on 9 individual words, which takes 9 separate visual fixations, you group them. I want you to literally take your mouse cursor right now, or even your finger, and use it as a pacer, gliding it smoothly under these chunks. I went to the store to buy some milk. You've just reduced 9 stops down to 4. By training your eyes to take broader photographs of phrases, you align perfectly with how your brain naturally processes meaning.
Another massive physical optimization is warming up your brain by skimming for the gist. Before you read a dense article, I want you to spend exactly 60 seconds doing this. Read the title, the first paragraph, the first sentence of the middle paragraphs, and then the conclusion. That's it. This 60-second structural warm-up builds vital mental scaffolding. When you go back to actually read the text, your brain already knows exactly where the author is going, allowing your eyes to just speed through all those supporting details without any anxiety. Okay, Section 4. X-ray the grammatical skeleton. Let's talk about reverse engineering text.
Speaking of structure, let's shift gears from physical levers to cognitive ones. We're going to reverse engineer the text. Think about the classic hamburger structure of writing, right? You've got the top bun, introduction, the meat in the middle, and the bottom bun, conclusion. Well, when you know how to build a house, you can walk through it much faster than someone who doesn't. Grammar is often taught as this set of rigid, boring rules, but for a fast reader, grammar is an X-ray machine. Every long sentence has a skeleton, the subject, the verb, and the object. Everything else is just the flesh, the adjectives, the relative clauses, the prepositional phrases. Imagine this sentence. The exhausted manager who had been working for 14 hours straight without a break finally submitted the highly anticipated financial report. If you use your X-ray vision, you extract the core meaning in absolute milliseconds. The manager submitted the report. Boom. You skip the fluff and grab the core meaning instantly.
So the crucial point is that you absolutely do not need to read every single sentence with equal weight. Writers leave signposts everywhere, and you need to treat them like traffic lights. When you see, for example, you can often speed up and just skim the meat, assuming you already understand the concept. When you see, however, you need to pay attention because a conflict or pivot is coming. And when you see, in conclusion, you slow down because the core thesis of the whole thing is being served right to you.
And finally, Section 5, the tolerance of ambiguity. This is about shifting your entire vocabulary mindset.
This brings us to a massive psychological shift. To truly double your reading speed, you have to develop what is known as the tolerance of ambiguity. You have to let go of the dictionary. Seriously, put it down. You have to become a brave reader who isn't terrified by the shadows of unknown words. When you encounter a word you don't know, use the 3-strike rule. Strike 1.
Guess the meaning from context and just keep reading. Strike 2, if it pops up again, guess again based on the new context. Strike 3, only if it appears a third time and it is clearly the absolute core subject of the text do you finally stop to look it up. The reality is that 90% of unknown words are just non-essential descriptive adjectives. You have to trust your brain to fill in those gaps in order to maintain your reading momentum. Let's see how this builds into pure speed. To get there, you have to utilize the 98% rule for extensive reading. You must choose texts where 98% of the vocabulary is already totally familiar to you. If you're stopping 10 times a page to decode complicated words, you're not practicing speed reading. You're practicing vocabulary acquisition. There's a big difference. To build pure speed, choose highly familiar texts so you are never, ever bogged down by decoding.
I absolutely love this quote because it perfectly summarizes the entire mindset shift we've been talking about today. Writers are architects. Readers are tourists. As a reader, if you understand the blueprint of the building, you don't need to stop and examine every single brick along the way. You can confidently walk straight to the most important rooms.
So here is my final challenge to you. Are you ready to turn off that inner voice? Are you ready to stop regressing, start chunking, and let your eyes do the running on whatever you read next? I highly, highly encourage you to take these physical and cognitive techniques and apply them immediately today. Grab a book, guide your eyes with a pacer, hunt for that grammatical skeleton, and just trust your brain. You're going to be amazed at just how fast you can go. So what are you going to read first?
So right now, you are probably reading the texts or articles or maybe emails in front of you at the exact same speed that you speak.
Yeah, which is true for most of us.
Right. And biologically speaking, I mean, that means you are artificially capping your brain's visual processing power by about 300%.
It's a massive bottleneck. You know, we are basically walking on a highway when we actually have the biology to drive.
Exactly. Well, welcome to this deep dive. Because if you've ever sat down to read a text in a language you're learning, you know exactly how this feels.
Oh, definitely.
Like, say you're at an intermediate level and you're trying to tackle an English article or a book chapter. You carefully read every single word for 3 pages.
Just grinding through it.
Yeah, grinding. And you reach the end, you take a breath, and then realize you have absolutely no idea what you just read.
Yeah, it's so common.
Right. You just end up having to go back to page 1. You feel like your eyes are stuck in molasses while native speakers are just like flipping through the pages in seconds.
Which is incredibly frustrating. I mean, I see this all the time with language learners.
Right.
They feel like they're working so hard, putting in all this mental effort, but they're really just spinning their tires.
So our mission today is exploring what our sources call the B1 reading bottleneck.
Right.
If you are stuck spinning your tires, it is likely because you are reading like a detective. You know, you are examining every single word, mentally translating it, checking its grammar against like a textbook in your head.
Which makes sense at first.
Yeah, it's a habit we all build out of necessity at the beginner stages, the A1 or A2 levels of learning a new language.
Absolutely.
But today, okay, let's unpack this. We are going to look at how to rewire your brain and your eyes to stop decoding word by word and start reading to actually absorb the material.
And it requires a complete shift in your mental posture. You are moving from inspection to immersion.
Okay.
And the sources we're looking at today suggest that by connecting your reading to other core language skills, well, you can effectively double your reading speed.
Wow.
Yeah. But to understand how to do that, we actually have to start with biology.
Wait, biology? I thought you were talking about language.
We are, but reading is an intensely physical act.
Oh, I see.
If we want to understand why you are reading slowly, we have to look at the physical limitations you might be unintentionally placing on yourself. It basically comes down to 2 biological anchors, the voice and the eyes.
All right, so let's start with the voice, because that ties into that statistic about speaking speed we opened with.
Yes. There is this biological truth that most people never really realize until it's pointed out.
Right.
For the average person, comfortable speaking happens at about 150 words per minute.
Okay, 150.
But visually and cognitively, your brain is fully capable of processing 300, 400, or even 500 words per minute.
So the culprit is that inner voice.
Yeah.
I think the technical term in the research is subvocalization.
That's the one. Subvocalization is the habit of silently pronouncing every single word in your head as you read it. You might not be moving your lips, though some people do, but your inner voice is articulating the sounds.
So it's slowing you down.
Exactly. As long as you chain your reading speed to your vocal cords, you cannot physically read faster than you can speak.
I have to stop you there, though, because, I remember being in first grade, tracing my finger under a picture book, sounding out words letter by letter.
Sure, we all did.
That is literally the foundation of literacy, right? How we connect letters to meaning.
Yeah.
So are the sources saying my elementary school teacher was wrong?
No, not wrong for a 6-year-old learning to decode a writing system for the first time. The problem is that many of us never drop the training wheels.
Oh, interesting.
Right, reading aloud is a fantastic exercise for pronunciation. It trains your mouth muscles to form the shapes of the language,
Yeah.
but it destroys your reading speed. At an intermediate level, you already know the sounds of the language. You just don't need the auditory crutch to recognize a word anymore.
So you're saying I need to separate my speaking practice from my reading practice?
Completely. Do your 10 minutes of reading out loud to practice your accent, but then do 20 minutes of completely silent high-speed reading.
Got it.
The ultimate goal is visual semantic processing. When you see the word APLE, you shouldn't hear the letters APPLE in your head. You should just instantly visualize the fruit.
Which makes sense in theory. But, telling someone to just stop listening to their inner voice is like telling them not to think about a pink elephant.
Exactly. It backfires.
Right. I was reading a dense contract the other day, trying to speed through it, and I caught myself silently mouthing the legal jargon anyway. So how do we actually shut that voice off?
You basically have to physically hack your own nervous system.
Yeah.
One of the most effective methods mentioned in the research is surprisingly simple. You just chew gum.
Wait, really? Just chew gum while I read?
Yeah. Or tap your finger in a steady, repetitive rhythm.
Okay, why does that work?
What this does is it physically occupies the motor cortex and the vocal adjacent areas of your brain. By keeping those areas busy with a mechanical task, you make it neurologically difficult for your brain to articulate that inner voice. It forces you to rely purely on visual recognition.
You're basically distracting the slow part of your brain with a piece of gum so the fast part can take the steering wheel. I love that.
It's remarkably effective. Another physical hack is listening to instrumental music.
Okay.
It has to be without lyrics, though, because lyrics will trigger your language centers and pull you right back into subvocalizing.
That makes total sense.
But my personal favorite technique from the sources is concept translation.
Oh, concept translation. How does that work?
You train yourself to project 1-second mental movies. Like when you read the sentence, the dog chased the ball, force your brain to instantly flash a visual clip of that action.
Like a literal movie in my head.
Exactly. The human brain processes images roughly 60,000 times faster than it processes text. If you can jump straight from the text to a mental image, you bypass the voice entirely.
Okay, so the gum or the mental movies handle the voice anchor.
Right.
But even if I silence the voice, I still find my eyes physically getting lost or just tired on a dense page. What's happening there?
Well, that brings us to the second biological anchor, your eye mechanics.
Okay.
Reading is a highly physical activity for your eye muscles. They move across the page in rapid little jumps called saccades.
Saccades, right.
But untrained readers tend to have terrible eye mechanics. They suffer from 3 specific issues: fixation, margin wasting, and regression.
Okay, let's take those one by one. I assume fixation means I'm literally just staring at the page wrong.
Essentially, yes. Fixation means you are stopping your eyes on every single word. You are giving a simple functional word like the exact same amount of visual processing time as a complex word like philosophy.
Ah, yeah, I definitely do that. And what about margin wasting?
That's when your eyes start at the very first letter of the line on the far left and track all the way to the very last letter on the far right.
Which seems like the normal way to read, right?
It seems logical, but it completely ignores the power of your peripheral vision.
Oh, I see where this is going. If I use my peripheral vision, I don't have to scan as far.
Yes, exactly. The sources recommend the indent technique.
How does that work?
You just do not look at the first word of a line and do not look at the last word. If a sentence is, "The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog," start your eyes at quick and stop them at lazy.
And my brain still sees the word the and the word dog.
It does. Your macula focuses on the center, but your peripheral vision naturally catches the edges.
It is fascinating.
And this simple mechanical adjustment reduces the physical distance your eyes have to travel by about 20%. Over the course of a 300-page book, that saves a staggering amount of time and eye fatigue.
Yeah, that feels super actionable. But what about the third issue you mentioned? Regression. I know I'm guilty of this one.
Oh, we all are.
I'll read a paragraph, feel a tiny bit of doubt about whether I actually absorbed it, and my eyes just dart backward to reread it.
It's the worst offender, honestly. It completely shatters your momentum. Yeah, studies show that untrained readers waste up to 30% of their reading time just rereading texts they actually already understood.
30%. Just out of habit.
Purely out of habit or a lack of confidence, yeah.
So how do I stop myself? Because if my eyes naturally want to jump back and I'm second-guessing my comprehension, what's the fix?
You bring in a physical constraint, a metaguiding pacer.
Okay, what is that?
You simply use your index finger or a pen or your mouse cursor and physically trace under the line you are reading at a steady, continuous pace.
Oh, like when kids learn to read.
Exactly. Your eyes are biologically programmed to track motion. By dragging your finger forward slightly faster than is comfortable, you make regression nearly impossible.
Because my finger is already pulling my eyes forward before they even have a chance to jump back.
Right.
But honestly, moving my finger under the text feels a bit like I'm a third grader again.
It does feel a bit silly at first.
If we want to maintain this visual momentum without manually pointing at the screen, our sources suggest a much more modern solution. And ironically, to read faster, they say we should actually use our ears.
Ah, yes, the listening shift. Using auditory input to drive visual speed.
Here's where it gets really interesting. They call it immersion reading or whisper sync. Basically, consuming the audio and the text of a book or article at the exact same time.
It overrides our natural instincts in a brilliant way.
How so?
Well, as we discussed, your eyes want to wander. They want to pause, fixate, and regress when they hit a slightly difficult phrase.
Yeah.
But an audiobook narrator is relentless.
That's so true. They don't care if I need a second to mentally translate a word. They do not pause.
Right. They keep moving at a native pace, which, as we established, is usually around 150 to 170 words per minute. When you force your eyes to follow the text while that audio plays, you are physically dragging your visual processing speed up to match that auditory speed.
Feels almost exactly like trying to run on a treadmill.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
Right. If you're running outside in a park and you get a little tired, you naturally just slow your pace down without even realizing it.
Sure.
But on a treadmill, the belt doesn't care how you feel. It just keeps moving. You either keep up or you fall off. You are basically forced to let go of the micro details of your running form just to survive the macro flow of the workout.
That is a brilliant way to frame it. You are sacrificing the micro detail for the macro flow.
Yeah.
And the sources offer a tactic for this called the audio pacer. You start with the audiobook at normal 1.0 speed. You follow along with the text.
Okay.
If you miss a word, you just let it go. The audio pulls you forward. Once your eyes adapt to that treadmill speed, you bump the audio to 1.2.
Wow, okay. And I imagine it does wonders for understanding the rhythm of the language, too.
Enormously. English, for example, is a stress-timed language. It has a very distinct musical beat to it.
Right.
When you listen to a skilled narrator, they don't read words in isolation. They naturally group them into rhythmic blocks or thought chunks.
So you're not just seeing individual words anymore.
Exactly. By listening while you read, you internalize that rhythm. You stop seeing a sentence as 15 individual, isolated words, and you start hearing it as 3 distinct, meaningful blocks.
And we have so many tools for this now. You know, you've got Audible and Kindle syncing up, highlighting the text as the narrator speaks.
They're great tools.
And you have browser extensions like Language Reactor that force you to read Netflix subtitles at the exact speed the actors are speaking, no pausing allowed.
And AI tools like Spoofify?
Oh, yeah.
You can feed it any web article, have it read out loud to you, and push the speed up to 2 times or even 3 times to really test your visual limits. What's fascinating here is that your ears actually set the tempo and your eyes just have to follow the dance.
Okay, I'm fully with you on the treadmill concept, but this brings up a massive practical problem.
Yeah.
My eyes are physically flying across the page now. I'm not subvocalizing, I'm not jumping backward, but everything is moving so fast. How do I actually comprehend the text without getting totally lost in the blur?
That's the real challenge, because speed without comprehension is just turning pages.
Right, exactly.
To comprehend at high velocity, you need what the sources call a grammatical shift. You have to start seeing grammar not as a set of rigid textbook rules you need to memorize, but as an X-ray machine.
An X-ray machine. Okay, so looking through the surface to find the bones.
Precisely. You need to develop syntactic parsing.
Syntactic parsing.
Yes. Every sentence, no matter how ridiculously long or complex, has a core skeleton, the subject, the main verb, and the object.
Okay.
Everything else, the adjectives, the relative clauses, the prepositional phrases, that's just the flesh. The flesh adds detail and color, but the skeleton carries the actual structural meaning.
It's almost like looking out at a massive, crowded stadium of people, but you train your brain to only search for the people wearing red hats. You just blur out everyone else.
That's syntactic parsing in action. Let's do a real-time test with a complex sentence.
Okay, let's do it.
Imagine reading this. The exhausted manager, who had been working for 14 hours straight without a break, finally submitted the highly anticipated financial report to the board of directors.
Okay, if I'm reading that as an intermediate learner, word by word, I'm exhausted by the time I get to the word report.
But with your X-ray vision, you mentally bracket the non-essential parts.
Right.
You see the comma after manager and you bracket the relative clause, who had been working. You bracket the prepositional phrase to the board. Your brain instantly extracts the skeleton. The manager submitted the report. Boom. Half a second.
Wow.
You skip the brackets on the first pass, and if you realize you actually need those specific details later, you can always scan back.
That is just structural skimming. Are there other ways to reduce that cognitive load while reading at that kind of speed?
Well, one great trick is actively flipping passive sentences to active ones in your head.
How so?
If you read, the new policy was implemented by the CEO, your brain has to work a bit harder to process that passive structure.
Right, it's a bit clunky.
But if you instantly flip it to CEO implemented policy, it aligns perfectly with our natural subject-verb-object processing.
I noticed the sources also mentioned using punctuation as traffic lights.
Yes. Commas are yield signs. They tell you to slow down slightly because a qualifying detail is coming.
Okay.
Semicolons tell you the next clause is an equal partner to the first. And M dashes, those long dashes in the middle of a sentence, they are detours.
Detours.
Yeah, the author is going on the side tangent. A fast reader knows they can often skim or entirely skip the text between M dashes without losing the main thread of the argument.
So that handles the grammar X-ray at the sentence level. But I know from writing long emails myself that we can zoom out even further.
Absolutely.
We can X-ray a whole paragraph by reverse engineering how the text was constructed in the first place.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the author's the architect and you are the tourist.
I like that. If you take a moment to understand the blueprint of the building, you don't need to examine every single brick to know where you are. English writing, particularly in articles, essays, and business emails, is highly predictable. It generally follows a hamburger structure.
Right. The top bun is the topic sentence. The meat is the supporting details, the data, the examples. And the bottom bun is the concluding thought.
Knowing that blueprint unlocks a technique called the topic sentence sprint.
I've actually started trying this one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I know the writer puts the main idea at the top. I read the very first sentence of a paragraph at normal speed. I get the thesis.
Yep.
Then I can sprint. I skim the meat, all those supporting stats and examples at double speed because I already know what point the author is trying to prove. I only slow down again when I hit the first sentence of the next paragraph.
It is an incredibly efficient way to consume nonfiction. You also want to look out for signposts.
Transition words. They are the architect directly telling the tourist where to look. When you see a phrase like, for example, you can usually speed up or skim because the author is just illustrating a concept you probably already grasped in the topic sentence.
Oh, right, because I already know the point.
But when you see however or on the other hand, that is a signpost telling you to hit the brakes. The author is introducing a conflict or changing the blueprint.
To train this filtering ability, the sources suggest something called the summary squeeze.
Yes.
After you finish reading a page or a chapter, force yourself to write a one-sentence summary of it. Just one sentence.
Which is harder than it sounds.
It is. It forces your brain to constantly filter out the noise and hunt for the signal while you read, which naturally increases your speed.
But, all of this speed, all of this X-raying and sprinting eventually runs into a wall.
Right, and this is exactly what I've been wondering about. So what does this all mean for those moments when I hit a word I just don't know?
Yeah, it happens to everyone.
I've got my visual treadmill going. I'm finding the skeleton. I'm sprinting through topic sentences. And then, bam, I hit a word I simply do not know. A totally foreign piece of vocabulary. Doesn't this whole high-speed system just crash?
This is what the sources call the vocabulary shift.
Okay.
At beginner levels, when you hit an unknown word, the habit is to stop, pull out a dictionary or a translation app, and look it up.
Right, obviously.
But at an intermediate or advanced level, that habit is fatal to your speed and your comprehension flow. You need to develop a psychological resilience known as the tolerance of ambiguity.
Tolerance of ambiguity. Basically the bravery to just keep reading even when the picture isn't 100% clear.
Exactly.
But what if the word is actually important?
That's where you implement the 3-strike rule.
Okay, the 3-strike rule.
Strike 1, you encounter an unknown word. You make a split-second guess at its meaning based on the context of the sentence, and you keep reading. Do not stop.
Okay, so strike 1, I guess, and move on.
Strike 2, the word appears again in the next paragraph. Now you have more context. You use the wider scenario to refine your guess. You still keep reading.
So keep going, got it.
Strike 3, if it appears a third time, and you realize it is clearly the core subject of the text, only then do you pause the treadmill and look it up.
Let me test that. Say I'm reading a news article and the sentence is, "The politician's pusillanimous response angered the crowd." I have no idea what pusillanimous means.
But you know the response angered the crowd.
Right.
So you know it's a negative trait. Maybe it means weak or cowardly or evasive. The exact definition doesn't matter for your comprehension of the event. You tolerate the ambiguity and keep moving.
And the craziest part about this is a statistic from our sources. 90% of unknown words in a general text are just descriptive adjectives or adverbs that aren't even essential to the main argument.
It's true.
They are the flesh, not the skeleton.
So let them go. But for the words you do know, you shouldn't be reading them as isolated units anyway. You want to build a library of lexical chunks.
You mentioned a visual snapshot earlier. How do I actually do that? Do I just unfocus my eyes and stare at the middle of a phrase?
No, it's more about pattern recognition. Think about recognizing a friend's face.
Okay.
You don't look at their nose, then their left eye, then their mouth, and then logically conclude it's your friend. You process the entire arrangement of features instantly as a single concept.
Well, that makes sense.
You need to do the same with common phrases. Your brain shouldn't read the words in the middle of separately. It should recognize the visual contour of the phrase in the middle of as if it were a single vocabulary item, like recognizing a stop sign.
What?
Processing one snapshot instead of 4 individual words multiplies your speed.
There was also a mention of morphological guessing to process bigger words faster.
That's using roots and affixes. When you see a massive word like unpredictable, you don't need to slow down to decode it.
Right.
Your brain splits it in half a second. Un means not. Predict means guess. Able means can be, cannot be guessed. You process the morphology and maintain your momentum.
But to practice all of this, to get this momentum, to train lexical chunks, and to practice the 3-strike rule, you have to choose the right material to read.
This is absolutely crucial, and it's called extensive reading, or the 98% rule. To build the mechanical skill of speed reading, you must practice on texts where you already know 98% of the vocabulary.
Because if there are 10 unknown words on every page, I'm going to get frustrated, lose the context, and my speed will just drop to 0.
Exactly. You need graded readers or young adult fiction or topics you are already an expert in. The vocabulary needs to be highly familiar so your brain can focus entirely on the mechanics of speed, eye flow, and chunking, rather than getting bogged down in decoding new words.
Okay, looking back at the ground we've covered today, to break through this B1 bottleneck, it really is a full-body, full-brain shift.
It truly is.
You have to physically chew gum or tap a finger to kill that slow inner voice. You use audiobooks as a relentless treadmill to pull your eyes forward and force you into the rhythm of the language.
Yep.
You use your grammar X-ray vision to find the subject-verb-object skeleton, ignoring the flash. And above all, you have to be brave enough to tolerate ambiguity, use the 3-strike rule, and just let go of the words you don't know.
You are fundamentally rewiring how you interact with information. You are taking off the hat of the A1 or A2 detective, where every single letter is a clue you have to cautiously analyze, and you are stepping into the role of a B1 or B2 architect. You are seeing the overarching structures, the blueprints, and moving smoothly through the spaces they create.
It changes everything about how a page of text feels. But, thinking about all this, especially that concept of concept translation where we bypass the inner voice entirely for pure imagery, it leaves me with a somewhat wild thought.
Oh, what's that?
If we actually train our brains to stop hearing language, if we successfully convert a page of text directly into a rapid-fire sequence of 1-second mental movies playing at 500 words per minute, are we even reading anymore? Or are we essentially teaching ourselves how to dream while completely awake?